This is Democracy Watch. All right, Mark, we finally got a court ruling for a case that we've made multiple videos about and both probably lost a good deal of sleep over. What just happened in Arizona?
Yeah, so good news. The Republicans had brought a lawsuit challenging the state's election procedure manual. This is the rules of the road for how the state of Arizona conducts elections. Every election official is bound by it. You might ask yourself, why on earth would the Republican Party be challenging the election procedure manual? But they did. And if this had been struck down, it would create, frankly, some chaos in how elections are administered. My law firm intervened to defend against this RNC lawsuit, and a judge in Arizona has dismissed this Republican lawsuit. And so, at least in this one lawsuit, and there are several, the election procedure manual is safe.
Okay, I want to dig into this a little bit because, you've spoken about this specific instance a lot, how it's especially insidious and how it can create a blueprint for Republicans across the country that would be really dangerous and really damaging to our election. So what exactly is Arizona's election procedure manual, and why are Republicans so hell-bent on challenging it?
Yeah, so it sounds very wonky, but it's unbelievably important if you want free and fair elections in Arizona. And as you say, it's a precedent for around the country. Arizona wants to have a set of rules that all election officials follow. When do the polls open? How do they open? How do you move traffic through a polling location? Who does the check-in? Who does the check-out? Who gives the ballot? When do you get that little sticker, right? All of these rules of the road of how you conduct elections, and those rules should be the same from one place to the next, right? How you count ballots, how you certify election results, should be the same rules everywhere in the state. And so the Arizona law provides that every 2 years there is an election procedure manual that's put in place. And usually this is very non-controversial stuff. Like, sure, some person might want the sticker earlier and some people might want a bigger sticker. But, it's more or less non-controversial stuff. But this go around, the Republicans and their allies have filed 3 lawsuits trying to strike down this Bible of election procedures, like the manual for literally how you run elections. So they talk a lot about wanting, election integrity, but the fact is this is just further proof that they don't. They want to make it easier to cheat, and that's why they don't want these uniform rules.
Right, they'll say, for example, that they want election integrity, and then they'll go ahead and band together among Republican states and withdraw from ERIC, which of course allows states to talk to each other and to determine which voters are removed from which roles, so that there actually could be election integrity.
They don't want election integrity around any of this stuff. I mean, this whole term election integrity that they've come up with is one of these great disinformation terms. It's like classic Trumpism. They don't want election integrity. They want to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat. Look at what they did in 2020. What about their efforts after the election looked like election integrity? First, they filed a bunch of frivolous lawsuits. Then they tried to throw out the election results in 5 entire states. When that failed, they staged a violent insurrection in the nation's capital, followed by the Republicans in Congress trying to disrupt the final certification of elections. None of that had anything to do with election integrity. All of that had to do with raw power, with exercising raw power by any means necessary to get Donald Trump into office. And if Democrats and progressives don't understand that that is what they are up to, then we are going to be in for a rude awakening. That's why Democracy Docket covers Republican efforts to subvert elections every day.
And to that exact point, for those watching right now, if you're not yet signed up for Democracy Docket, it's an amazing resource. I use it on a daily basis. Please sign up. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Mark, for posterity, what would have happened if Republicans were successful in terms of the practical impacts of getting away with this Arizona lawsuit to basically take away the election manual?
Yeah, so look, this is what they want. They want chaos. Like, Donald Trump is a chaos agent. He thrives in chaos. He thrives in there being no norms and no rules. And so what the election procedure manual does in Arizona is it creates norms and rules and orderly elections.
Yeah.
So what it would lead to is a situation in which you could have one county doing one thing, another county doing another thing, having very different processes and procedures, which of course then the Republicans would point to as a rationale for why they could contest the election. Like, in some ways, uniform rules make it harder for them to cheat on the back end and contest the election even after that.
Right, so they basically want to break it and then point to the thing that they just broke as evidence that the whole thing was rigged and that they should be able to come in and kind of remake it in the mold of whatever they want to do.
100% correct. And isn't that the definition of what the Trump campaign is about?
Yeah. Is there any indication that Republicans are employing a similar strategy in other states? I mean, they were unsuccessful in at least one lawsuit in Arizona. Is this happening simultaneous with other efforts to basically throw away the whole election manual in other states?
Look, Republicans are active throughout the country in attacking election administration. So it's not just Arizona. Democracy Docket tracks all of the lawsuits that are going on around the country, and it categorizes them by what it is that is the goal of the lawsuit, right? So sometimes it's a goal to get more people to be able to register. Sometimes it's a goal by Republicans to try to make it harder to vote by mail. And what's interesting is that the biggest number of lawsuits that you see Republicans file are targeting election administration. They want to make it easier to harass election workers. They want to throw out election administration rules like this election procedure manual. They are targeting the way in which we literally cast and count ballots. And it is a very disturbing and dangerous trend. And it is the opposite of election integrity.
And another way, by the way, that they're looking to do that is to basically zero out funding to election administration. So I believe in the last general election, they allocated something like $55 million to election administration in this country. What we need in actuality to fully fund our elections is in the ballpark of $400 million. But right now, far from even the scant $55 million that they allocated last time, they're trying to allocate $0 to election administration in this country. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, they want to defund elections because they don't want free and fair elections, right? If you want something, you don't defund it. Republicans are defunding democracy because they don't want a democratic result. They are defunding elections because they don't want our elections to yield accurate results that are above reproach. They are defunding election officials and local election workers because they don't want honest people running our elections. They are defunding the polling and the machinery and the counting equipment and all of the rest of it because they don't want that process to work. They are attacking the mail, the postal service. For how many years now have we been talking about Republicans attacking the postal service? They are still attacking the postal service. Why? Because the postal service is a lifeline for millions of Americans to be able to vote. And so all of these efforts to defund our democracy are all part of a part, which is that Donald Trump knows that come November, he will lose the popular vote. And he will probably lose the popular vote by more than the 7 million votes he lost it last time. Certainly by more than the 3 million votes he lost at the time before that. Donald Trump has never won a majority of any electorate that he has been a part of. And so the defunding of elections is one way that they can, along with attacking things like the election procedure manual, that they can weaken the institutions that administer our elections and make it harder to vote, but most importantly, easier to cheat. And then after the election, point to all of that and say, this is a reason to justify the violence that you see that we instigate.
Let's finish off with this. We saw this result against Republicans in Arizona in at least one of these lawsuits. Does that establish some type of a precedent moving forward that we can see either in these other cases in Arizona or nationwide that would kind of lend itself to a bit of a sigh of relief in terms of Republicans losing this case? Or is this just like, we dodged one bullet, but we're going to get hit with 100 more?
Look, every win is a win, right? So we take it on its own merit. So I'm pleased that my law firm represented some of the intervener defendants here who defeated this lawsuit. But the problem is, Brian, is that right now we live in a system in which the good guys have to win in court every time. The bad guys have to win only once. Right? I mean, this is the thing, we fought back, I was proud to represent President Biden. We won 64 of 65 cases in the post-election. The one we lost involved, frankly, no votes or not more than a handful of votes. But if we had lost any one of those big cases, if we had lost the case that was in the Supreme Court, 5 states get disenfranchised. If we had lost the case in Pennsylvania that would have thrown out all the mail-in ballots, there goes Pennsylvania, right? So the problem, that mentality continues today. Unfortunately, the bad guys are seeking audacious outcomes in which they do things like throw out the rules of voting, or in which they invalidate huge swaths of the way in which people are able to vote. And we have to win all of those.
Right.
And so, I'm glad that they lost here, but there are 2 more lawsuits pending in court in Arizona challenging the same election procedure manual.
Right, and if Democrats win, then we, stay in the status quo, and if Republicans win, then we are dealing with some catastrophic consequence of that. All of which, by the way, underscores the importance of the work that you do and your team do. So for those watching right now, to support Mark and his team, please sign up for Democracy Docket, free news outlet again that he founded to focus on everything voting elections. I'll put the link on this screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Teller Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.